And then let's see, what's another one I want to demonstrate? Another one that has specialized instructions. Well, maybe I'll just do flower curve, not flower curve. I'll do the vase. So I can just double click on it also, and it'll open in Illustrator. And so I'll kind of run through these quickly. So I'm going to start with my pen tool and set my stroke thicker. I have it on 3 points. I'm going to turn off my fill. Does this look like it's an open path or a closed path? Can anyone tell me? It starts at this end.
The open path?
Yes, very perceptive. Yeah, so it starts at this end, goes all the way around and to then. With this one, you only have to go up to this point because they're exactly the same on both sides. They're mirroring each other. You only go up to here, and then you can duplicate and reflect. So it'll save you some time. So I'm going to start here with just a click, right? Because I'm making a straight line. I'm going to hold down Shift and Shift click to the on the corner. And now I'm in a situation where I have a straight line meeting a curve at a corner. So now I want my next line to be a curve, right? Does it look like a curve's coming out of this point, judging by the rubber band? Or is it a straight line? What do you see? Straight line, right?
Right.
So how do we make a curve come out of this endpoint? Anyone remember? We can pull out a handle, right? So how do we do that? We hover over the endpoint, and what symbol do we see?
Hand curve.
Yes, that means that we can just pull a handle out, and I don't have to hold down any key. I just click and drag and pull a handle out, and the handle is gonna ensure that a curve is gonna come out of this point now, because wherever there are handles, there are curves, and the handle controls the curve. Where do you think I should put the handle? Should I put it above the curve or just below the curve?
Below the curve.
Very good. Why do you say below? Because see how the handle pulls the curve towards it, right? Because if it were above, the curve would be going out the other direction. So you got it. Very good. So now this handle's already creating this wide curve here. So now my next curve is this little narrow curve. So I can just click and drag right along the side of the narrow curve. So should I click and drag a long drag or just short drag? If I go long, then my curve's gonna flare out, right? So I go short, and I drag my handles out so that they lie down tangent along the side of the curve and in the direction that I'm moving, that I'm going around. So I'm just pulling up a little ways. And now I have this wide curve here, that this handle on this point here is a point that has handles on both sides. So it's helping both sides of this curve. So it's already helping this side here. So now I can skip over this curve and I can move to my next curve, which this could be a chin. I'll call it a chin. The chin curve. So I'll go kind of past the chin curve and click and drag into the curve. Now I underestimated a little bit, so I can hold down on the command key and make adjustments as I go and pull the handle up here to just adjust. Or maybe I made the point a little too far away, so I can move it in a little bit and turn the handle a little bit, and then I have a little more control over the shape by, adjusting where the point is. In some cases you might need to add an additional point, like if I Like, let me move it further. I could move it further up and then pull it down, and then I might say, well, neither this handle nor these handles are really capturing the subtlety here of this other curve here. So in this case, maybe I do want to add a point. So I can always take my pen tool, hover in between points on a path and click to add a point, and then hold the command key and just make a little adjustment. So it's just a little tighter there to follow the subtleties. And there are not too many points too close together here. So just enough points for structural support. So now I'm going to move on to the next curve. This handle's a little long, so I can hold command and tug the handle shorter. And then I go a little, so this is pulling this. So I could probably go past this far and click and drag into that curve there. That's good. And then here, let me just go down here. Now here is this handle's pulling out enough of a curve here that I don't need to click and drag anymore, because this is a corner that's between a curve and a fairly straight line. So I'm just gonna click here. And then over here, I could do a little click drag here, just a subtle click drag into that curve, and another. Now I'm doing little click drags right on the peaks of the curves. So sometimes you'll do a click and drag on a peak of a curve, and other times you might go beyond the curve and click and drag into that curve, whatever feels comfortable. So then I'm going to click and drag into the curve here. And now I'm at a situation where I have a corner between curves. So when you're at a situation when you're at a sharp corner between curves, what do you do? What key should we hold down on now? The Option key, right? Because that will toggle us into the anchor point, and that will let you drag on the end of a handle to switch this from being a smooth, continuous Bezier curve to being two curves meeting at a sharp corner. So if I didn't do that at this point and I just click and drag and go my merry way, then I end up, let me go to my direct selection tool just to show you, I end up with this kind of weak sauce, wobbly curve here, which I don't want in this situation. And when I use my direct selection tool, it's just gonna seesaw, teeter-totter back and forth and stay smooth and continuous. That's with a smooth and continuous Bezier curve. And let me just bring up, if I can, the About the Anchor Point tool handout one more time here, because that shows you, besides switching points from being curves to corners and back to curves again, vice versa, you also can take that anchor point tool to drag on the end of a handle to create these shapes where you have these nice wave shapes or golden arches where you have curves meeting at corners. So that's what we're doing when we take the let me just use I'm gonna just, let's see, select this point and adjust this handle over here like that. So that's what we're doing when we actually take that anchor point tool and we drag on the end of the handle. Now it's created this nice break between curves where now we can control each curve separately with its own little handle to control each side of the curve separately where the curve meets at a sharp corner. And you can do that easily by toggling into the anchor point tool from the pen tool by holding the Option key. But I didn't do that. I did it a little differently this time, so I actually switched tools and I broke continuity. So I'm going to go to the end point here, click the end point to continue from this point. I'm going to drag out a handle to make sure that I have a smooth curve coming out of this point here. Because if I don't do that, I'll have a one-handled point, which will give me a little corner, a little straight line coming out. And and that's something that happens to students all the time, is that they end up with corners where they really want curves, and and vice versa. So if that kind of thing is happening to you where you are clicking and dragging and moving along, and then maybe you broke continuity, and then by switching tools, and then you you go back to the pen tool, and then you need to go on the end here, and you click, and then it's when you click to reactivate continuity, notice now a straight line's coming out of this. So then I go over here and I click and drag and move along my merry way, and there's another curve here, so I click and drag, and then here's another little narrow curve, so I can click and drag here. And then let's say I break continuity again, I switch tools, and then I'm like adjusting, and then I notice that this point here is a one-handled point where I don't want a one-handled point. So what happens then? How do you correct that? Because this is actually creating a corner where I don't want a corner. It's not exactly nice and smooth. So if you wanted to alter your points, that's a job for anchor point tool. So what I would do is I will just click the point with the anchor point tool, and that's okay. What it did is it removes the handle. So this is a linear point now, just a corner between straight lines. But then I want to bring the handles back. So it's just like refreshing the point back to, it's like a cycle of like a metamorphosis that the point goes through. So then you take the anchor point tool again and you click and drag, not this way because that's making a tangle, but this way. So now I have the smooth point again, and I can go and adjust with my direct selection tool and adjust the handles. Another thing that can happen is that you could accidentally click the point to remove the handles, and then end up with like a jagged corner where you don't want it, and then you just go and click drag to add the handles again. Also with the direct selection tool, normally you know just dragging the handles side to side, you're not going to convert the point, but you could actually drag a handle into a point, and that also removes a handle. That you could do that with the direct selection tool. So if you do that, then again you have a one-handled point, which could create a little wrinkle that you don't want. If you want it smooth again, you go to the anchor point tool, click to remove the handles, click drag to put them back. Okay, so those are some ways to alter your points as you go. And then I'm just gonna go zoom out with Command minus, go to my pen tool, click on the end here, click. I'm going to drag out a handle, and I'm going to go just up to here, and I'm going to click and drag. And that's all you need to do, and you can go back and make adjustments if you'd like. It doesn't have to be perfect. Then what I'd like you to do next is to reflect and duplicate. You guys want to see the one-step method or the two-step method to do this? We're running out of time, so let's do the one-step method. It'll save you time too. So I'm going to select this path, which if you look in the layers, let me just go to my panel options and large. Maybe that's not large enough, so panel options, and I'll do 70 pixels large. Okay. So now if I flip open my layer, you'll see I've got this one path here, and the rest of the three objects that I provided for you are locked, and that's what we want at this point. Then what I want to do here is I want to select the path, right click it, and then choose transform and reflect. So you should be familiar with that from when we did the pattern. And it's reflecting the original path that I created, but what I want to do is I want to duplicate it or copy it. So instead of just clicking OK like we did before, I'm going to click copy. So now I have a copy, and I can just line it up. That's the copy that's reflected. Line it up, and I've got these two separate paths that I want to connect into one. So I'm going to talk about doing that. I'm going to just shift click to select both of them just to show you where the fill goes on these two open paths. Are we looking at two faces or a vase? I'm going to go into properties and appearance and add a fill that I like here, a gradient fill. And you'll see that the fill on open paths just wants to go in the concave areas, and that's just fine. What we want to do is we want to connect the two separate paths into one so that we can make the clipping mask. So to do that, I'm going to take the pen tool, hover over the end point of one of my paths. I will see a slash appear. So I'm going to just click that to make the end point of this path continue. And now I hover over my next path and I'm going to see another symbol appear. What does that symbol mean? Can you see that symbol? That symbol looks like, if you look in your handout, on the Important Illustrator info handout, the symbol that I'm looking at is this one right here, which is the connector symbol. So that's important if you want to connect separate paths into one path. You can always use that, find that symbol when you hover, when you're continuing a path and then you're hovering over an endpoint of another path. That's the symbol that you see when you're about to connect separate paths together into one. So that's what I'm about to do now. I don't know why that keeps coming up. Okay, so I see the connector symbol. I'm hovering over the endpoint of my second path. See the two separate paths listed in layers. When I click to connect them, then now the concave area is very much more defined. So it's like it's a vase, or it's maybe it's the sunset between the two faces. We still don't know exactly what we're looking at. That's the beauty of this type of image. It's an optical, it plays optical tricks on you, goes back and forth. So we're going to follow the steps. We did the hard part. Now we follow the steps in the assignment. So the steps are, we go from after step 1, which is the hard part of making the line design, then unlock all. So that would be Command Option 2. Make sure to deselect, select the template selected, I can see it's targeted, press delete. Then we select the path on top, hold down shift and shift click the image that you want to show through. I'm going to target it, and then we've got 2 items selected. We can right click and choose make clipping mask. Then for fun you can experiment, release the clipping mask if you'd like, and try the path inside instead if you'd like. It's just an exercise. You can open up the clip group like I just did, flip open the clip group, target the image and drag the image around inside to position it how you'd like. And then when you're done, you just go File, Save As, and I'm going to put it in my finished ones. And one trick to quickly naming is once you get it started and you named one, you can just select one of the ones you named and it'll give you the same name, but then you can change the number. So this is my number 2, so I'm just going to change the number to 2 and add it to my pen tool finished folders. But I want to not forget to choose Adobe PDF, and then I'm going to save that there and save PDF, and then I can close it and go on to my next one. Now, are there any that you guys specifically want to see me demonstrate, or should I just go on to the one that involves special instructions, which is the the waves one? I'm just going to move along to do the waves one then, because I'm probably not going to get to all of them, so you'll have to figure out the rest on your own. This one kind of looks like a funky Mickey Mouse because the fills, where the fill just wants to go in the concave areas, remember. So some people say, is that right? Because it's going to look weird in the end, so don't be alarmed. If you want, you can connect it to make it a closed path, and then it will look better. But it's just an exercise. It's not intended to be any special great art. Anyway, I'm going to just double click on waves to open up the waves and show you this one. This one has special instructions in the assignment. In your assignment, exercise 3 assignment, you can find there are additional instructions for the your owns and for the waves. So there is a little paragraph that details how I'd like you to create each wave. You can create each wave separately. You could create one wave. If you're confident with that one wave, then you can just duplicate the waves and connect them together to be one path. So the way to do this wave to make it very clean and smooth, I'd like you to do it in 4 points. Once you get this down, you'll be ready to do the designs for the surf shops, because this is a very clean wave just made in just 4 points. So to do this, I'm gonna start with by turning off my fill, going to my properties and making my stroke weight thicker so I can see, and then I'm gonna choose my pen tool, and I'm going to start at the base of the wave, and I'm going to just click and drag, but then I'm going to hold down on the shift key, which is going to constrain my handles to be on a perfect horizontal. So that will keep your curves nice and even on both sides. So now I'm going to release the mouse before I release the shift key. I think I should adjust my camera so you can see where my mouse is. Let's see, where's my... This camera is not getting... There's my mouse in the shot, but then you can't get... Okay, it's like I can't get my mouse and the entire keyboard in the shot. What is wrong with this picture here? Okay, so now I'm going to go up to the top, and the top of the peak of the wave, and I'm going to click and hold, and then hold down shift, which I'm going to try it on this side so you can see me do this. So I'm going to click and drag, and see, right now I'm not holding shift. Now I'm holding shift to constrain the handles. And should I release the mouse first or the shift key? If I release the shift key too soon, then my handles they could slant. So I'm going to hold the shift key, keep the shift key held down, release the mouse, and then release the shift key. Then I'm going to come down here, and I drag the handles a little long, but that's okay. I can always adjust later. And right at the little sharp point on the wave, I'm going to just click. So I'm not holding down on any key at this point. So I'm just going to, whoops, I'm going to see if I can... Maybe I need to just raise my camera up higher. Let's try that. And angle it this way and this way. Okay, so then I'm just going to click here. Just to click, I'm not holding down any key. And now, if you'll look at the handout, it's showing you where the handles are. So just click here for point 3, but then we're going to drag a handle out from this point to pull the under curl of the wave. So the handle coming out of point 2 was long enough to pull the curve all the way to point 3. So you don't click and drag on the little sharp corner tip on the wave. You just click, and then you release your mouse, and then you click drag to pull out a handle on the end there. So then we so I'm hovering over the end point there, and I see the little anchor point tool symbol there telling me that that this point's ready to continue, and I can convert it by dragging a handle out of it. And I'm just going to lay the handle tangent along the side of the curve, and it's going to pull the undercurl of the wave. So next I go to the base of the wave again on the other side, and I'm waiting for my smart guide, which is appearing right now, to see that I'm lining up with the first point that I made. That's good. That's what we want. So now I'm going to click and drag and hold down Shift, and that's constraining the handles flat. And then I'm going to release my mouse, then I'm going to release the Shift key, and then I can go back and make adjustments with my direct selection tool. So the handles were just too long here, so I can make adjustments, but don't just make adjustments without holding Shift, because you want your handles to be flat. So for example, for this point on the top, on the peak of the wave, the handles laying down on a perfect horizontal are making the curve even on both sides. When, you know, if you skew the handles and the curve is not even on both sides. So holding down Shift to constrain the handles makes a nice smooth curve. Now I'm just going to adjust this, holding down Shift. And this handle here is the only one I didn't hold down Shift to make, so I don't need to adjust it by holding down Shift. Just drag, because if you hold down Shift, it's going to constrain the handle at a perfect 45-degree angle, which I don't want. So I just want to drag that there. So now I have my perfect wave made in 4 points. So once you get that down, then you can just duplicate. If you want to practice another one, if you want to practice all 3, that's great for you to really master this. But since I'm running out of time, I'm just gonna duplicate this 3 times. I'm gonna go to my layers and my panel options to make my layers large, so you see what's here. So I've made 1 wave here, and in order to duplicate a stroked path, you need to hover right on top of the stroke itself, not in the middle, right on top, till you see the little bounding box icon appear. And then I can hold Option, and Option drag out a duplicate, and then I can do that again, Option drag out a duplicate. And now I've got 3 separate waves. I need them to be all 1 path. So you guys know that you can take the pen tool and you can hover over an endpoint, activate it, and you can connect this way. But then you have too many, so you saw the connector symbol, right? And you click. So then you have just too many points too close together and it's awkward. So I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to undo that. So instead, what we can do is we can join points into 1 point. But let me just show you, before I do that, how with the direct selection tool, I can drag a marquee to select 2 points at a time here. They're both selected. And then I can use the join command. If you go to Object, hover over Path, and choose Join, then that's a way to join, but that takes a long time. So this is another one of my favorite keyboard shortcuts. I've got a lot. Under Object, Path, Join, you can see that on a Mac, it's the join keyboard shortcut is Command J, so that would be Control J on Windows. So if I click, that'll do it also, but that's the long way. But that joined those 2 selected endpoints. But again, I'm having issues with that because the points are too close together. So I can undo that, or another way to break that is to take my pen tool, and now you see how it strung the 2 paths together. I can take my pen tool and add a point in between those 2 points to break the path open again into 2 separate paths. I just have to have that middle point selected, and then I press delete and it breaks, and now the paths are separate again. And what I want to do is I want to just drag the points over a little bit, and it's okay if it's gonna get off track of the template, but I'm dragging the one point over, I'm dragging another point over, and as soon as I drag one point on top of another, it will snap, and it'll kind of give you a little white box, the box will appear bigger as you snap one point into another. So that did not join anything yet, but now I can drag a marquee over those two endpoints that are snapped on top of each other. And this is a way, when you use join now, it'll just connect the two points and make it one point, which is going to be cleaner. So I can do Command J, and now it's all joined into one point, and it's much better that way. And again, I could go over to this other one here, because now we have two waves strung together, but the other one, oops, is not. Let me just click over here and use Command plus to zoom in over here. So then these are right on top of each other already. Let me just make sure by dragging it apart and then dragging a point on top of another point, and then I drag a marquee to select. How many points are selected now? It looks like one, but it's actually 2 points selected there. Until I use Command J, then Command J turns it into 1 point and connects all the waves into one path. So it's one little string of waves there. And that's what you want. For this one, I'd like you to do 2 separate paths. And then if you look at the special instructions, then our next path is this one that's the curves. And and it's just another way to make curves that I'd like you to think about, besides clicking and dragging into the peak of the curve like we did up here on the peak of the wave. In the middle of the curve, we clicked and dragged into the curve. This is the other way of making curves, where you're clicking and dragging along the sides of the curves to make nice smooth curves. So instead of dragging in the peaks of these curves, we're dragging along the sides, and we're lining the points up in a straight line using the smart guide that will appear to help you to line up those points in a straight line. So we click and drag up in a diagonal, then we hover over the template line until we see the smart guide appear, and click and drag down in a diagonal, and then do the same thing, hover over the template, click and drag up in a diagonal, down in a diagonal, up in a diagonal, lining the points up in a straight line as best as you can. So that's what I'm going to do down here as a separate path. So I take my pen tool, click and drag at the first start of the line up in a diagonal, and I'm not going to hold down any keys for this, and then I hover over the template line, and I'm seeing the smart guide appear, so I want to add a point there lining up with my first point, click and drag down in a diagonal, and then I'm going over here waiting for the smart guide to appear. My points are lined up, I click and drag up in a diagonal, lining up with my previous point. I see the smart guide, so I click and drag down in a diagonal, hovering over the template, waiting for the smart guide. And it's okay if things get a little off. It's not a perfect science here. And then we click and drag up in a diagonal. So you have curves, and then you just use your direct selection tool, select the points, and you can drag on the handles to make adjustments. It doesn't have to be perfect. Don't be too hard on yourself if it's not perfect. I probably rigged it somehow, and it's my fault. Okay, so all you need is curves. So you got the waves, and then you got the curves, and now we're working with 2 separate paths here. You might be tempted to just connect them into a shape, and that'll solve the problem at hand, but I'd like you to learn about making compound paths. So if you want to have 2 separate shapes in a clipping mask, you need to combine the separate paths into a compound path. And grouping will not work with clipping masks. So some people say, oh, why don't you just select them and group them? Well, those groups just don't work. You could try it out for yourself. You'll find it's not going to work. So what works is combining the paths into a compound path. So you select one, you hold shift, you select the other, and you turn it into a compound path. Because right now, these are two separate paths on two separate sublayers. But when you combine them into a compound path, it all gets merged down into one object sublayer. So we can do that, and you'll see in your Important Illustrator Info handout at the top, there's a little bit about making compound paths. So you can select your paths that you want to make into a compound path, and you can go to Object and choose Compound Path Make, or you could use the keyboard shortcut Command 8 on a Mac, Control 8 on Windows. Also, you could probably right click and choose Make Compound Path. So this is now combining separate paths into one sublayer. So Command 8 works for me. I like that. And see, Command 8 made a compound path. So now I can use the compound path to make the clipping mask. If I didn't do that, whatever path is on the very top of the stack is going to be used, and the other path is going to be clipped, or it's going to be not used in the clipping mask. So we want to use both paths, so we do that. Okay, so I'm going to follow the steps on the assignment. So we unlock all, Command Option 2, and then we everything is everything is unlocked, but it's all selected. So we click outside to deselect, delete the template, delete, select the compound path now, hold down shift, and I'm going to target the image. It's hard to get to it by clicking on it on my workspace. So I'm going to target it using the layer panel, and then I can use Command 7 or right click, make clipping mask. And there's a scuba diver in there, so I can flip open the clip group, target the image, move the image around, and play with where the scuba diver shows up. So these are two open paths combined into a compound path to create this funny looking design where they're not closed paths. So you see that the what's clipped in the clipping mask is going where the fills would go, which are in the concave areas of the paths. So then you're done with this, so you go File and Save As, and you choose to do this as, well, I'll go to my finished, click on one I've already done, change the number to number 3 in line, and I'll change the format to PDF, and add that to my finished ones. 3 down, 4 more to go. So save PDF. So now probably you want to know about the your own ones and how you might approach those. So I'm going to open up the your own ones, because the other ones you can kind of figure out how to do on your own, like flames, just, click and drag into the curves. Follow the same process. Is this an open path or a closed path? Can you guys tell? The flames is a closed path, and flower curve, that is an open path.